Think before you speak, read before you think. Fran Lebowitz said this, and I can't agree more. You are a music maker and you want to make a music business or advance your business. I think there is no better way to shape your mind than through reading. We always talk about reading as being something good, and it never really made sense to me until I realized I'm like, okay, think about like the most expensive music lawyer you could find. If this person was like, hey, I'll tell you everything you need to know over lunch, how much would you pay for that? I'll be transparent. A lot of lawyers out here in LA charge $400 to $600 an hour. And then even in that lunch, they're just going to give you their stream of consciousness thought. What if they were like, instead, I'll prepare it all step by step and lay it out. I'll come to you with a written plan, everything together beforehand. How much would you pay for that? That's what reading is like, but it costs like $15. So today I'm going to give you 6 books plus a bonus one at the end that like changed the way I think about music business and like saved my skin a ton of times. If you're new here, my name is Marcus. I am a composer, I am a producer, I'm the director of Southside Symphony. And if you like the way I teach, you should check out my educational platform that I just started called musicality.me, where I can teach you directly about all these things that interest me. It's new, I just launched it, but I'm adding new courses like every other month. So if there's something you're really interested in, please do leave comments down here. Like, I work in the industry now and I don't teach anymore, and I really miss that aspect. So I love the back and forth. So let me know. Anyway, let's hop into the books. Okay, so the first one we're gonna go with is like the Bible for the music business. All You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald Passman. So Passman is a lawyer, kind of like what I mentioned in the hypothetical at the opening. This book is him just breaking down, like from his experience and from his knowledge of the law, every different aspect of the business, like what types of royalties are there, where are those generated, how are those generated. And I would say like I meet even like working professionals in the different guilds and academies who work out here in LA, like actual like longtime professionals who don't really know the basics of how like music royalties are paid, because they're always changing. They're always changing, they're evolving in our lifetimes. There's new things, and then there are like a lot of the stuff in the music business, it evolves, but the nomenclature says the same and doesn't really make sense. Like we talk about mechanical royalties. Well, they're not mechanically making these CDs anymore or records, but we still call them that. Well, so how does that apply to this? And so it's so complicated. And Passman does a really good job of like breaking all that down. This one has saved me personally in a lot of like music dealings. The way I would say you approach this book is like, once you should just read it all the way straight through. Maybe even do the audio book or something like that if you prefer, and just kind of get like a forced few sense of it, and then just keep it as a reference. There's one on like film scoring and like what the typical deals look like in that situation. And so like say you're gonna have a one of your songs is gonna get placed in a movie a year from now. You know that you can go, it's like, oh, I read that once, but let me go back and see like what some of those numbers he was mentioning, see what some of those timelines and splits he was mentioning in that chapter look like. This is literally what I did. And you might be thinking like, okay, when I get to that point, I'll have a lawyer and they'll handle all that. Yes, you will, but your lawyer works for you. And the thing that's kind of tricky about a lot of these deals in practice, as someone who's been doing them the past few years, is that like we don't negotiate in a vacuum. And there's not just like, this is a good deal, this is a bad deal. It's like there are elements of it, and it's about what you prioritize and what you want, and you kind of have to know what those elements are before you even know what you really want. So this is one I highly recommend you check out. This is like a must read if you want to have a career in music business. The next one, I gave away my physical copy. This is called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. This is a mindset one. The premise of this book is basically like, we often think about success in terms of like these big hits. This definitely applies to music. We think about like that big smash on the radio that's going to make all this money and do all this. We think about like all or nothing, these big successes. And the compound effect made me realize that like most lasting success that you would want to have is not the result of like some big Herculean effort, some huge lift. It's like a bunch of small successes compounded over time. And I read this maybe like 5, 6 years ago. And what do you know? In that time, my life has changed completely from just doing like consistently like moving the needle a little bit no 0 days. Just get like makes a little bit of progress, and over time, these small successes make these huge wins, and it's lasting and it's repeating. How many times have we seen an artist have like a big hit and then we never hear from them again because they don't know how to repeat it? They haven't built a sustainable thing that they can keep doing over and over. I read The Compound Effect like really early on in my career, and I credit that mentality, that long-term thinking, to a lot of my success that I've had so far and that I hope to have in the future. So next, I'll say Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. This is like a really short one. It's kind of like a, I don't know, it's a good like coffee table type of book. You can literally read it in a day. I'm putting Show Your Work on here because Show Your Work is the book that finally got me to do things like make this video and to make content talking about my work and my process. If you're my age or older, a lot of us, we came up in the age before the internet, and the way creative projects used to work were that like you'd spend like a year and a half, 2 years working on your album, and then you'd be like, okay, cool. So how do I market this? How do I get people to care about it? And a lot of us still have that mindset. And when you're thinking about it through that lens, content becomes this thing that like this other thing that I have to do after I've done that process. How many musicians do we see online complaining every single day about like, why do I have to be a content creator? Why do I have to do this? I'm also a music producer, and it's like a lot of artists I work with are like that, or like, or that I'm probably not going to work with are like that because they're like, "Ah, I'm not really a content thing." And I was the same. I was the exact same way for years and years and years, basically until the last like 2 years or so. And Show Your Work is what helped me break that because he kind of showed me that it's like, one, flat out, that's just not the way the world works anymore. Like, instead of the creation process and the talking about your work process being separate, now they're the same. Now it's intertwined into the work. Like, so I'm doing YouTube videos now and these long form things now, but he gives a lot of like easier examples too that are like kind of like dipping your toe into that waters. Like, you can start with just documenting your process. What does it look like if you just set the camera up while you're at the piano working out your chords, and that's part of your thing? Basically, he reframes it as like we need to start thinking about documenting our process and letting people into the process, even if that stuff comes out afterwards, as part of the creative process and not this separate thing. And this is a short read, but I think it can change your life and impact it in a great way, especially if you struggle with this content stuff, or you feel like it's like, man, if you still hate it, I would definitely like suggest checking it out because this was the one that finally cracked that for me. And like I said, you can read it in a day. Next is another one that I gave away. If I gave the book away, I just want to be clear, that means it's a great one. That means like one of my friends was looking for something to read, and I'm like, oh, you should check this out. And Essentialism is that for me. It's a book that I've read at least 2 or 3 times, and I think it's going to be one that I have to keep going back to. Kind of the premise of Essentialism is that like we kind of approach productivity like, how do I do the most amount of things? How do I get the most done? And what he says, Greg McEwen says, is like we should instead be asking, how can I do less but better? So rather than going like an inch in a million directions, how do I go a mile in one direction? And I think that's like the type of brain that I have. I'm so interested in so many different things. And especially like in the music business, I think this can happen to us a lot because like every day there's like five credited experts telling you that something else needs to be the focus. Like, for every person that's telling you you need to make more content, there's a person that's telling you like be mysterious and don't make content, and both of them like have Grammys and all of this thing. Like, it's hard to know what to focus on. And Essentialism is about like how do you hone that focus and how do you work on that muscle, and then how do you choose the things. What basically it comes down to, what do you value, and only you can decide that. But not deciding is dangerous, and this is a great book on that. I will give you the caveat that like, man, unfortunately, that type of focus is not something you do once and you're done. Like, it's something you have to keep working on. You never win the game. You just are always trying to master yourself. It's a practice. But yeah, I love this book, and it's one that I read multiple times. The Compound Effect was in there. I guess I didn't give it away. Oh well. These next two are really about like the business nuts and bolts. Not fun, but oh my God, so helpful. First, we're going to go with Profit First. This is a book by Mike Michalowicz, and I kind of like the way he writes. I haven't read any of his books in a few years, but when I was first starting, his books really helped me. A friend recommended me to this, and Profit First, what it does is it gives you kind of like a rough framework for how you should be thinking about how money is divided as it comes into your business. And this comes as like when you get to the point when you're trying to like, okay, how do I make my thing a business? How much should you be saving for taxes? How much should you pay yourself? How much should you be spending on marketing? What percentage of what comes in should you keep? Profit First is kind of a framework for how you think about that. It's kind of simple, which I like. You know, we're not trying to become accountants. I still have an accountant, but the accountant's job is to sort of like keep track of everything and make sure I'm squared with the taxes and all that. But like, they're not making the decisions on like how much do you spend on this and how much do you save. And that's all on you. And it always will be until you have like a business manager. But even then, again, those people work for you and you should kind of be aware of how your money works, at least on a fundamental level. One of the lessons I remember from this is like, if you don't pay yourself anything, then you can never hire help. And I think this happens as like entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. It's like you want to put on a great show. So I'll be transparent. Like one of the things I did early on in my career is like I would put on these Southside Symphony shows and I would pay everybody all the money. I just wanted the experience. I just wanted the video. I just wanted the portfolio, all of these things. But I realized it's like, okay, if I do that too many times, it's like I can never hire help. So the moment I'm in over my head, you're just out of luck, you know? Something I like about this book is that he gives like specific percentages. Because there is no one size fits all, he does give a few ranges, but a lot of times people will be like, you want to think about it like in this abstract sense. He'll just be like, oh no, 10% or oh no, 15%. And I love that. And that type of like assuredness is something that we kind of want as creatives because we're just so unsure about so many things. It's nice to have like, okay, this is what I can aspire to. And you don't have to start at these percentage that he gives. Like you make your own. And he talks about that. But yeah, it's been a few years since I read this, but it was really, really helpful for me when I was first starting. Next is another business one. We have the E-Myth Revisited. This is so helpful for like solopreneurs. Does this sound like you? Oh, nobody can help me with this because nobody can do these specific things like I do it. I have to be the person because I have a system and I'm the only one that cares about it this much and I'm the only one that understands how it all fits together. You know, we all do that. We all like to think that our business and our projects are this special snowflake. And I'm not saying that our art isn't, but I'm saying that like not being able to have help hinders us a lot and holds us back in most of the cases. So kind of the concept for this is like when you reach that point when it's like I really need assistance, I really need to hire help, but I don't really know how. And E-Myth Revisited like kind of gives you ways to create systems around what you do so that they are repeatable and that you can like train people to help you in those specific tasks even if you've never done that before. And it's kind of told through this like conversation with Michael Gerber, the author, and a fictional small business owner. And I think it's super, super helpful. This is another one of those books that I go back to time and time again. Something this book made me realize is that like being really good at doing a task is not the same at being really good at the business of that task. For example, like say I was a baker and I made the best cake that anyone you ever met had. Like this cake is better than your grandma's cake. Does that mean I know anything about the macroeconomics that like affect the bakery industry in Southern California? No. Does that mean I know anything about like advertising food services? No. Does that mean I know anything about like sourcing products for flour and distribution of all these things? Not at all. Michael Gerber kind of makes the case that like a lot of what we call entrepreneurs aren't entrepreneurs. They're just like these creatives or technicians as he calls them that like caught the entrepreneurial flu or something, you know what I mean? And he kind of splits every small business into like three characters. There is that technician I'm talking about that just loves the craft of what they do. That's the baker in that scenario. Then there's the manager. That's the person that like is managing the team and making sure everybody has what they need. Who's going to be doing what and how do we decide that? And lastly, there's the entrepreneur. That's the person that's thinking about all these business opportunities and how can we leverage these spaces in the market. And what happens is a lot of times we're all three, and that's not necessarily bad, but it becomes bad when we're only thinking about it as one thing. I like to bake cakes. It's just a fascinating study in like how to deal with all of that and how to build systems around what you do so that it's repeatable and that so you can successfully get help. And this was a game changer for me. I have assistants all the time on all my projects now, and that I never thought it would be possible before I read this book. I want to give you one more bonus. This is one that I haven't read yet, but I'm looking forward to it. This is by my friend Kent Anderson, and it's called It's All About the Marketing Stupid, a practical guide to music marketing. On the internet, there can be a lot of people who give blanket advice who don't really have any credentials. And Kent Anderson is somebody who's like really worked in the music industry. He was a friend of one of my mentors, Mike Cunningham, who no longer here anymore, jazz arranger, composer. But Kent Anderson teaches at Columbia Chicago, and he was there when I was doing undergrad, and we've stayed in touch. And I'm like really excited that he wrote this book, and I look forward to checking it out. If you've been interested in any of the lessons I've learned from this, and you're like the way I teach, be sure you check out musicality.me, my own education platform that I started online, and let me know what topics you'd like to see covered on there. I just started it, so I'm looking to cover a lot more things. All right, guys, make sure you subscribe. See you in the next one.